This video is just going to show you a few more examples of what you can do with F5Data. When you first start the program and you hit the home button, it jumps to something like this, which is just the default zoom location. But let's say you want to switch that to wherever you are. Let's say you want to be in Northeast Tennessee. Zoom in, and then you go up to Options, Set Current View as Home. So now when you start the program, it looks like this, and you hit Home, and it jumps to Northeast Tennessee. Similarly, if you were to click this terrain button, this brown terrain button, and then turn cities on, you'll see there's a ton of cities that pop up, and you can set your zoom level so that just the right amount of cities show up. You can zoom in and out by steps and see how that changes. Let's say this is a good view for us. We can go back and reset that home view to that, so that when we start the program, you can have cities turned on or off. Zoom back to your home view, and now you can have it like that, or you can have it like this. You can turn on county names, turn the cities off, turn the roads on, things like that. You can also set the different colors. By default, the program has certain colors, and most people just keep them that way, but I'd encourage you to change them to anything that you wanted. Let's say you want to change the world background to a god ugly green. You could do that, but I don't like that, so I'm going to switch that back to something like this. That's still not quite right, but you get the idea. You can go to custom colors, make it a little darker, change the hue altogether. Hit OK, that's a little better. Now kind of a puke color, but it is what it is. You get the idea. Now when you're back to here, and I still might puke green, which is annoying, but you'll notice that this program comes with a set of favorites, and these are set just based off of some things that I like to use for severe weather forecasting. When you click one, it just draws the map right away for you. Actually, it won't right now because I'm under current conditions. So that's a good example of what not to do. Before you do anything, you have to decide, are you doing a forecast or are you looking at current conditions? And over here, this rainbow colored looking thing is, it's not supposed to be a rainbow, it's supposed to be a contoured map. Anyway, you click that and choose your model. There'll be more models coming soon. And then you can draw one of these. So I'll just do a surface map. And it's already got predefined layers already set. So in this case, it's got the pressure, wind barbs, and theta E. Theta E is actually good for finding where boundaries are when you have a nice tight gradient. So then you can zoom in, and you can see it blows things up. All these colors you can change, so if you don't like the color scheme, you can change it. Clear the map. But the idea here is that you can also change or add or edit these favorites. You go add, edit. Sometimes it minimizes here and you have to bring that back up, but you can select which one you want, delete it. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to delete any of them. But let's say I wanted to add one. Let's say I wanted to create a winter map of some kind. Also on the left here, every click is a double click. So double click to open up your category, double click to draw a map. So let's say we're doing a pressure contour, you double click that. You want to plot temperatures on top for some reason. So what I did here is I clicked plot values only, and then I double clicked surface. And also note that I had the dual multi-layer button selected. If you were to have this button selected and then I were to click this, the pressure contours would have went away and it would have drawn a temperature map. So now I've got pressures with temperatures on top. Just to show you more of how the program works, If I go back to the single layer mode, which means that it's only going to draw one of these maps at a time, and I select something else like visibility, the other maps will clear when I double click surface visibility, change the color back because that was driving me crazy. It's not quite right, but I can deal with it, I guess. So the first thing you want to do, as I've shown in other videos, is you got to make sure to set your model or your mesoanalysis, current conditions, whatever it is that you want to map over here. It's the third button. The one that looks like a rainbow. It's supposed to be a contour. It starts out with the current conditions, and anything over here that you want to draw, you double click. You also want to make sure that you set these buttons correctly over here. So if you want it to be shaded with outlines, with labels, you do that. So let's say, for example, you want to do a dew point map. You double click dew point, and then the dew points come up. Now the only reason that it's only contouring for 45 and above is because in the options for dew point under map options, if I were to scroll down to dew point, current dew point, you'll see I have it at start value of 45. And the reason I did that is just simply because, for me, I'm only looking for severe weather situations for the dew point, really. So I keep it specific to those levels. If you were to remove that value, it would show all of them, but you have to make sure that you also have colors defined for those. Otherwise, it won't show up right. So now you clear a map. This is upper left button, and now if you were to do plot values only and do it again, you're only going to get numbers plotted on the map. So those are the current dew point values. If I zoom into my home location, you can see those are the dew points in the area. Also, when you have it in single map mode, as I do right here, whenever I click another map, again, make sure that what I want set is done before I click the map. Double click temperatures. It will clear the previous map and then draw the temperatures. If I were to do in a multi-layer mode, then if I do plot and I want those dew points back up, it'll keep the temperatures plotted but plot the dew points on top. So you can use your imagination how you want to plot those things. I'm going to go back to single. I'm going to clear the map. But again, I should go over these buttons because this is important. If you have shaded, it's going to do a color gradient as a background. If you do contoured, it's just going to draw the lines. And then you can also do, if you want, the values are not plotted. This outline shading doesn't apply to contoured. It's only to shaded. So let me show you the difference here. If I were to do temperatures, here I'm going to have shaded only, no contours, no contours and no labels shown. So it's just showing color is all it's showing, which that might have a purpose at some point, but it's going to be a little bit hard to understand if you're going to be showing this to somebody. So if I clear it and do it again with, let's say with labels only, and then it shows nothing. So apparently you have to have the outline showing in order to have the labels. Alright, so I learned something. I'll try it again. There you go. So with this outline shading, what that does is it kind of puts a highlight on the contours. If you did it without that, again, you won't have this highlight. I'll do it one more time so you can see the difference. And also when you're downloading, notice down here it says what it's doing. So watch that. If you're wondering why it's taking so long, is it downloading? Is the internet connection slow? You'll get that information down there. What it's doing, as you can see, it's not highlighted. There's no accent to the line there now. So now let's say we want to change one of these favorites. The program comes with these default favorites. And what that is an easy access to a map. So let's say you were over here and you were looking at the future. Of course, so for the future, you have to pick one of your models, RAP, NAM, GFS. We're going to be adding a couple models here shortly. If I pick that, pick the next button, which is your forecast hour, and choose, let's say, 48 hours. And then I want to do, I don't know what I want to do. Let's do a precipitation map. So I double click that category, and I've got different ways of doing it. I could do 3-hour accumulated precip, which is just between 48 and 40, I'm sorry, between 45 and 48 hours into the future, ending at noon. I've got this set at Central Time, noon on Wednesday. This is the precipitation. It's not showing the values because I didn't have those turned on, so I'll have to do that again if I want those. Or the other map would be total accumulated precip, which is everything up from 0 hours to 48 hours. That's kind of a nice map because that'll tell you, let's say you want to know what's going to happen for the next 3.5 days. You could just go up to 84 hours. This gives you the entire 3.5 day total. And if I zoom into my home area, you can see we're in kind of a hole. We're not going to have any precip according to this model. The other models might say something different, of course, but this isn't Meteorology 101. This is, here's how to use the software. So let's say this is the map that we want to keep. So you go up to favorites. Let me step back a little bit here. This isn't a terribly difficult map to make. You know, you're just doing a total precip. You're just double-clicking one map. Favorites become useful if you're overlaying several layers or if you have a specific process in your forecasting. For me, what's in here is a specific process. These are the specific maps that I like to look at for doing a severe weather forecast. So keep that in mind when using favorites. You can use it for whatever you want, but it becomes a little bit more useful for when you're going to be doing a lot of clicking, or if you just want to organize what you use on a regular basis. But let's say this is the map you want. Add favorite. For some reason it minimized here, but we'll give it a name. Let's say total precip. Save new favorite. And then that'll save that into our list. So if I go back here now and I go down to total precip, it'll draw that map. So the idea behind this too is that it saves you some clicks. It doesn't save everything that you did. It didn't save the model. It didn't save the forecast period, but it did save the way that the map looks. It saves shading, the contouring, and the labels on that. So if I wanted to use, let's clear this, let's say I wanted to use that same favorite on a different model. First I would go to GFS, or whatever my model is, go out to the specific period, then I go up to favorites, total precip, and then that'll give me the favorite, the total precip out to 15 hours according to the GFS model. Let's just see, I'm kind of curious how GFS differed from NAM on the 84-hour period. The previous one had about 4 inches of rain out here in Texas and a hole up here in northeastern Tennessee. So very similar. GFS tends to give you a little bit more precip and on the edges, I think. But so that's the idea behind favorites. All right, so let's do a little bit more of a real-world example. So let's clear our map. Let's go back to our area of interest. Actually, before we do that, if you wanted to show this off in a more of a presentation type view, put it on your website, something like that, or TV broadcasts, you might want to sexy it up a little bit. You can do that by going up to this button and checking terrain and click set terrain, and you could get different options for terrain backgrounds to plot on the map. And you get a little thumbnail here of what each of them looks like. You know, just randomly picking something here that I think might look nice without it being too overwhelming. Let's try this one here. This message is telling me it's a big download. It's going to take a little bit. Fortunately, I'm on a pretty fast connection here, so it downloads extremely fast for me. But it may take, you know, several minutes for you depending on your speed. Then you're going to hit yes to to restart the software while it loads that for you. So when the program restarts, the terrain might not be visible. So what you might have to do is go up to here and uncheck the world background so that it becomes visible. There you go. Now you've got a terrain background. Depending on your preferences, excuse me, you might want to thicken up the state lines right here, and then set that to like a 2. You can see they get thicker. When you zoom way in, that becomes a little more useful. So you can see your state boundaries a little nicer. And then you can turn on your cities, and there you go. But if I do 384 hours, you can see how much snow that this model is forecasting the entire country over the next 16 days, which I think it's a pretty cool thing. The APRWX prefix, which I might have mentioned earlier, is basically this is a proprietary algorithm. Anything that starts with APRWX is there's some form of it is proprietary. So it uses model data, obviously, but some of the logics, in this case, determining the precipitation type and then doing the ratios, determining what kind of ratio to use, is proprietary. I also have quite a few proprietary severe indices, which would be in the severe category, the capping index, which is excellent, and then the severe and tornado indexes, which are my babies, pretty much. But let's go back to this storm here. I think it was what, 117. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to general. It's another proprietary index. It's a sky conditions map, which is it's basically cloud cover, and then it tries to overlay where the precipitation would be. It also does the snow areas and mixed precipitation, which is only shows me a little area here. So now with making sure we have multi-map turned on, we can put another layer on top. Anytime you have a shaded gradient layer underneath, you want to make sure that the next subsequent layers are contour only. Because if you put shaded on top of another shaded, you're not going to see through, and the bottom layer is going to be covered up. So we'll turn that on, and then let's do a pressure contour on top. So we'll double click sea level pressure. We got our low pressure here, and we got the boundary through here. And we can do wind barbs to make it a little easier to see where the boundary is. Where are wind barbs? Here's wind barbs. Alright, and then I think you could even do, let's say you wanted a temperature plot. Let's do a plot of that, so it only shows the actual values. So there you go. It's getting to be a lot on the map. If you were to zoom in, though, or dare I say even use your home button, you can see now you've got temperatures with the wind barbs. It's getting, I'm a little too zoomed in for all the details, but you can see clouds here, a little precip here, but you can back it out a little bit to whatever zoom level looks appropriate for that map. But let's go all the way out. You can see it's really cluttered there. We might want to turn off some of these things. I think I'm going to turn off temperatures, because what I want to show you next is how you can draw boundaries on this map and make a sexy future cast. So first what you want to do is you want to save this image. Or save went down here, so we'll click that, click save image, and then we're going to save this as surface. Now Front Painter, the third-party application, which is freeware that I'm going to use for this, actually doesn't accept ping images, and bitmaps look weird. So what I recommend is saving it as a GIF. I already had one there, but I'm going to overwrite that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to open that up in Front Painter. So here's Front Painter, and again, you can find this on the internet. Just do a search for Front Painter with a space in between, and you'll find it. So go File, Open, and here's our, navigate to where your image is. Double click that, let it open up, And now you can draw on this image, which is pretty cool. You might want to, take this into Photoshop and crop this out if you don't want all this label information on your map. But so with Front Painter, click the text tool. My low pressure center is in here somewhere, I believe. Put a nice big L there, change the color to blue, hit OK. Now I've got a low pressure center. Now I can draw a cold front extending out from the low. You have to start from the low. You click once where the beginning of the line will be, and then I recommend doing several clicks in between, because what that does is it will give, actually I'm not putting it in the right spot, let me start over. But doing several clicks in between will give the curvature of the low a little bit more of a realistic curve instead of, a jagged edge. So let's try and do this right. Get it into the trough here. Something like that. And this is the one thing that meteorologists are probably going to argue with me about, is exactly the placement of the boundaries, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just showing you how to use the software. You do what you want. There's a warm front. You could do a, I know you're going to laugh at me putting a dry line up here, but to say there was, you could put a dry line here. You could do an occluded front. I don't have any room for an occluded front, but let's do it here. There you go. You can see you get the occlusion. There you go, like that. I mean, it's got everything here. You could do a trough, stationary boundary. Let's say this is stationary. I think stationaries you have to come from the right to get the barbs to line up correctly. Let's see if I were to start over, and you have to click on something and then click back to start a new line. But let's say we were doing a stationary boundary from here. If I were to go from left to right, the barbs are the opposite of what they should be. But you get the idea. If you don't mess it up with a bunch of experimenting like I did, you can actually come up with a pretty neat looking map. Ignoring some of this stuff that I did, you can see here where our cold front is that you get the storm all ahead of it here. You got a little bit of dry intrusion behind it, which is cool. So things kind of come together there, and it becomes a nice map that you can actually use. What you want to do, it's an important note here, is when you save this, I've noticed that this program, it doesn't do very well unless you save it as a BMP. So you want to save it as a BMP, and you have to specify .bmp, hit OK, yes, replace it, and then make sure it's BMP. And then the image, when you look at it, will actually look correct. So we're back in F5Data again, and again in the future we'll have the ability to draw on the maps natively within the software, but at this point we don't have that just yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just a couple more things in this video, and that'll be the end of the video. But if I clear my map, also note that you can get real observations in here, not just model forecasts. Mesoanalysis data, current condition data. The current condition data, for example, if I were to plot values, is really useful. If I zoom in, once that pops up, we've got current condition reports, not only from METAR stations, but also from Department of Transportation, personal weather stations, all kinds of sources here. So it's not just the airports that are reporting, which becomes really useful when you want to get some of those other pieces of information in your map. So another thing that we're pretty proud of is the radar. You just click this icon that looks like a radar, fourth one from the right, and get down here, it tells you the status, it's downloading, and then radar pops up. Not a lot going on out there right now. If I go to the national view, there's almost nothing going on. But what's neat about this radar that we're really proud of is it's a national view, very high resolution. So if I were to zoom in, you can see it's pretty high resolution. We also color enhance the different precipitation type. That is done very well. The ground clutter is filtered out very well in this, so that, you know, besides there not being a lot out here, you can see there's no ground clutter whatsoever on this map. So you might look at it and you may think, well, gosh, is it working? But it's working, and it's working very well, and we're pretty proud of how well it works. It's too bad that I don't have an example here that it's actually showing some storms. There's nothing going on tonight, but you get the idea. So let's do one last map here. Let's do, unfortunately, I'm recording this at night, so we can't show the visible satellite. The visible satellite is very nice. Obviously, it only works in the daytime, but I'll click infrared for now. But the visible satellite would be really neat because it actually filters out the darkest colors, so that it will let, if you have like a train background or even this color background, the satellite, well, you can get an idea here on the infrared. It's not as well done as when you were to look at a visible satellite, but you get the idea that you can see the ground where the satellite doesn't think there's clouds. Here you can see the blue water and whatnot. Visible satellite is much nicer as far as that goes. But let's go back. We'll zoom to our home area. Or zoom. I think I set that zoom a little bit too far for my taste, but you get the idea. You got clouds here. Now you can overlay, as long as I turn my overlay on. Overlay radar on top of that. Again, downloading data down here. So you wait a minute until that goes away, and then you know you've got your radar on top. Again, not much going on. And then one last overlay. Let's say I want to plot temperatures. I could do a contour, but I think I'm just going to plot the numbers. I like the raw numbers myself. So there are numbers. We got satellite, we got radar, we got conditions, and I'll even plot some cities on here. So you can see out here, Johnson City is 34, Morristown 36, yada yada yada. There are a lot of other features in the software, and I'm not going to show them all in this video, but you know, you have the sounding mode here. Let's see, I'm going to shut these off. You got sounding mode. If I click over to that, I can show you briefly what that's about. But so now if I were to select a point out here in eastern Tennessee, I get a skew T. I get some actual numbers over here. I can look at the temperatures at various heights. Some indices, primarily, at least what's in here is targeted towards severe weather forecasting. But I can also look at it in text view, so I can look at the actual raw numbers throughout the atmosphere, then a bunch of indices, and this goes on and on and on. And this is the point of F5Data, is the amount of data that we give you so that you can actually do a good forecast. There's other features here, if I click back to maps, that I'm not going to tell you about here, but you should watch the other videos to show you how to use them. A little annoyed by the way this looks. Whoops. There we go. For example, you can do hurricane plots. You can show sea surface temperatures. You can do a spaghetti plot of all the different computer models and the National Hurricane Center track of any tropical storms that might be forecasted. But those are obviously not going to work right now because it's the dead of winter and I don't have any examples. So there's your sea surface temperatures. There's also a calculator here just to do some basic conversions. You know, temperatures, winds, pressures, blah, blah, blah. You can even do coordinate conversions or calculate shear. Or I guess you could even use this to calculate convergence, if you think about that for a minute. So there's full screen mode. You can see it's not completely full screen. It still lets you do your favorites, which is kind of a cool thing. Locate, it just lets you find a city on the map. And then, actually I can show you what that does. Let's do Johnson City, Tennessee. You can see it shows you where that is on the map. And zooms in on it. But it even goes below where you can see in this video. It goes down, covers up the start menu, and makes almost your entire screen the map, which is kind of a neat thing for monitoring. Say you have this up just as a radar monitor or a watch warning map that updates regularly. And then, by the way, to get things to update regularly, you just turn auto refresh on by clicking that, and then that'll refresh on a regular basis depending on what map you have up.